So I came across this video about coronavirus from this YouTube channel named Mr.Reagan. It's pretty bad. It's mind-numbingly dumb. So I'm just gonna pick it apart on how stupid it really is. We'll watch it here, and then I'll stop it periodically and tell you which parts are so dumb it's gonna hurt your brain. Let's begin.
Folks,
Mr. Reagan.
I've noticed that a lot of left-wing blue-check Twitter people, I think they're called twits. So I've noticed that a lot of twits have criticized conservatives recently for claiming that the coronavirus is a hoax. Let me be clear. Nobody is claiming that the coronavirus is a hoax. It's a real virus. Nobody is disputing that. The hoax people are citing is the alarmism of the mainstream media. The mainstream media has caused a global panic. Flights from Europe are canceled. I disagree with Trump on this one. People claim that Trump supporters never disagree with Trump. Well, that's not true. Here's an example right here.
Yes, let's pick the most benign and mundane thing to disagree with him on. Look, I'm not totally up his ass. I disagree with one thing he did about travel. Ooh. And then on to it's the American mainstream media, CNN, is the one that is causing Spain to basically shut the country down, France to shut the country down, Italy to shut the country down, thousands of people dying worldwide. CNN was the reason that China erected multiple huge hospitals like overnight. CNN is the one coordinating all of this to tank the American economy, and has somehow got all of like 6 or 7 other nations on board to simultaneously tank their economy and kill their people. Holy God. Let's go. Let's keep it going.
And many conservatives will disagree with me on this, but I think that this is an overreaction. The NBA postponed their season indefinitely, Disney closed, Broadway closed, everything is canceled pretty much, nobody's flying anywhere, the airline industry is crashing, no pun intended, oil prices are crashing, the entire stock market is in a nosedive. By the way, throw your money in now if you have something in savings. You're going to make 20% back probably by the end of the year, maybe even in the next few months. But make no mistake, this is a
Wait. This guy just told you that this is the rock bottom of the market. Meanwhile, today, the market is still crashing as I speak. But this is the rock bottom. So if you throw your money in now, you're bound to make 20% by the end of the year. He knows that this is the rock bottom. You will not lose a cent. Holy God. How many subscribers does this guy have? Let's find out real quick. 220. The video has almost 8,000 upvotes, 7.8. Holy God, this is why this country is so stupid. This is why so many people are still out and about, like shoulder to shoulder at bars, and you see these just asinine tweets on Twitter from people. So how does this get so many? If it's this easy to gain subscribers, I'm doing the wrong thing. I need to stop being honest and calling it like it is, and just cater to a pea-brained audience that will just thumbs up your just mind-numbingly dumb takes on videos. I sometimes have a very hard time figuring out whether people like this guy are like really as stupid as his audience, or if they're just grifting. Because it seems pretty easy to just grift. But, I mean, it's hard to tell. It really is hard to tell sometimes. Let's continue.
Overreaction, a hysteria manufactured by CNN and the mainstream media. The coronavirus is not the bubonic plague. It's the flu. It's a flu that we simply don't have a vaccination for. It's a flu that might be a little bit more dangerous for older people than the typical flu, but it's the flu, and it's nothing to get too worked up about. But people are panicking. Now, there are a lot of different statistics floating around Facebook and Twitter, but let's have a look at a few that I think are very critical. Now, this data here is primarily from Business Insider. Ebola, 40% fatality rate. Nipah, 77 fatality rate. SARS, 9.6 fatality rate. MERS, 34% fatality rate. Coronavirus, 3.6 fatality rate. And this is actually wrong. This is just from the confirmed cases. The estimate that I saw was 1% because most cases go unreported. And I think it's actually less than that, way less. Every panic-induced virus in the past 30 years has been deadlier than the coronavirus. But do you remember everything getting shut down in previous years? I don't. Do you remember Obama being blamed for these viruses or called a racist? No. In fact, there was no real panic at all. Why? Because the media didn't tell you to.
Wait. So there's a lot to unpack there before I pause it. So in the beginning, he said that the left or the media is calling it, so it's basically a hoax. And now he says Obama. Do you remember Obama being called a racist or that he's not handling it right, implying that that's what they're doing to Trump? That's not. They're not blaming the virus on Trump. They're blaming how he handled it. The fact that he called it a hoax. The fact that he downplayed it for nearly 2 months. The fact that he kept telling everyone we have it under control. The fact that he kept just exuding the fact in front of the whole world in these pressers that he is a moron and he has no idea what he's doing. The fact that he didn't prepare for it. They could have been preparing for this when it was in China. You know damn well that if a disease in today's world, how it's global, is in China, it could find its way to your shores in short order. We could have been making ventilators and preparing for this. We could have been preaching social distancing for weeks already. We could have closed certain things down so the spread wouldn't have happened. There's so many things that you could have done that he didn't do that is directly going to lead to certain people dying that otherwise wouldn't have had he done things sooner. And he still has no idea what he's doing. And then let's take the part where he talks about the mortality rate. The fatality rate of a virus. That's not the reason that they're closing things down for this virus. They're closing things down because it can inundate our hospitals with sick individuals. So then they're not getting the proper care because there's not enough health workers to provide the care that they need. There's not enough equipment to carry out certain procedures that need to be carried out, like ventilators. So someone may survive if they get infected with corona. Yes, they probably will. But would they survive if they didn't have a ventilator? Because that's some of the decisions that they're having to make in Italy. They're running out of supplies because there's so many people that are sick from the virus. It's not the fatality rate of the virus itself. It's from the fact that we don't have enough hospital beds. We don't have enough supplies. We don't have enough medical professionals to take care of the influx of rapid people being sick. That's what they talk about, flattening the curve. Because if it peaks too high, too rapidly, there's too many sick people. And some of them end up dying because there isn't proper care for them to receive because we don't have enough workers or we don't have enough supplies. So they don't... Joe gets a ventilator, but Mary doesn't get a ventilator. Mary's dead. Like, this is just... I'm 2 minutes and 30 seconds in, and it's insanely, easy to pick apart how dumb these arguments are. I have no idea how these people, like this guy has 220 subscribers. I've watched one video, I'm already just floored. Let's keep going.
Panic. They didn't have a motivation to attack the president at that time. But if the economy crashes and the quality of life in America drops, they think that maybe they've got a shot at winning the presidential election in November. They don't, but that's their plan.
Who is they? Again, this is more who is they? So CNN, MSNBC, the Washington Post, and New York Times, they all coordinated together. Everyone in these higher ups, so the boards of all of these companies all got together in one room and coordinated a virus outbreak in China, and then got together with other countries to make them close their countries down, knowing it would kill thousands and infect Americans to simply bring down Donald Trump. This is what I mean when I say conspiratorial thinking makes your brain just melt. And when you watch stuff like this, it's it's inconceivable that this video has almost 8,000 upvotes. Let's go on.
And consider this, the H1N1 virus, commonly called the swine flu, had an estimated fatality rate of 11% in 2009, according to this WebMD article. But in 2013, after better information was available, the situation was reassessed. And now they say that the virus had about a 0.02 fatality rate. Who knows what the coronavirus fatality rate actually is? We literally have no way of knowing.
We don't
you
know.
may have the coronavirus.
Exactly, we don't know. We don't know, so we have to prepare as if it's a lot higher or even higher than it is now. So again, so the hospitals don't get overwhelmed. So we don't have people then who can't get care for different ailments. So people die indirectly because there's too many people that are seeking medical help. Holy God.
Coronavirus right now and not know it because so many people express zero symptoms. Here's another valuable tweet. This one is from Charlie Kirk, and this is a great tweet. Okay, so this is the deaths every single day worldwide. The flu causes 1,027 deaths worldwide every single day. Pneumonia, 2,216 deaths every single day. Tuberculosis, 3,000 deaths every single day. Coronavirus, 56. Coronavirus is causing an average of 56 deaths every single day. So I think that should put this all in perspective. And as I said, current estimates suggest that 1% of people who get this virus.
Wait, this man said he thinks this is a great tweet from Charlie Kirk. Those two words should never be uttered in the same sentence together. And he thinks it puts things in perspective. Again, it has nothing to do with how many people are dying overall. It has to do with the rate of infected people. It has to do with the rate of people who get sick and then seek medical care. And then there's not enough medical care or supplies to go around to treat everyone. And then other people who end up in the hospital for pneumonia or something like that, they die when they otherwise wouldn't have because there's too many people in the hospital for COVID-19. Jesus Christ.
Die. You'll hear 3.6%, but it's the percent of reported cases, and many cases of coronavirus are going unreported. Now, you may have noticed that I haven't produced a video in about a week. Well, that's because I have been in bed sick. More on that in a moment. First, I have to sell you something. If people become trapped in their homes, I think it was just a really bad cold. I didn't have a fever or anything like that. So now how do I not know if I had corona or not? Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't feel like I should get tested because people under 55, they're not dying from coronavirus. And why go infect a bunch of old people in the hospital in order to get tested? What's the point of that? My point is just this. If I didn't get tested, how many other people who are really, really sick just aren't going into the hospital, just aren't getting tested? I imagine quite a lot. Again, this virus is not that dangerous. The mainstream media has just hyped it up so much that everybody's gone into a crazy panic. Now, in defense of the mainstream media, this overreaction started in China. We saw some pretty crazy scenes of Chinese people being rounded up by men in biohazard suits. China blew this thing way out of proportion from the very beginning.
This guy knows whether China blew it out of proportion from the very beginning. How do you know that China blew it out? Like, can we really trust the information and the data coming out of China? I don't think we can. So we don't really know if it was blown out of proportion by them. And yes, if you are a young, healthy individual and it's not bringing you to your knees health-wise, you shouldn't go seek medical attention in the hospital. That's what they're saying, because you'll further take manpower and supplies away from people who actually need it.
Of course, then the left-wing media in the United States went completely crazy, and they actually have fallen back on their favorite accusation against conservatives, that somehow this virus is exposing that we conservatives are, yep, you guessed it, racist. Of course, we're racist because of the coronavirus. This accusation has taken two forms. The first is the accusation that calling it the Wuhan virus is racist because nobody ever classified a virus by the geographic region of origin before. No, that's never ever in the history of the world ever. No, this is something that we conservatives invented just for this Wuhan coronavirus because we hate Chinese people so much. I mean, even among actual racists, the Chinese seem to be kind of exempt. For whatever reason, racists seem to make an exemption for Asians. Maybe they got a thing for Asian chicks. I don't know. But even if conservatives were racist against Asians, which is insane, but even if that were true, claiming that calling the coronavirus the Wuhan virus, claiming that that is racist is completely absurd. In fact, it's so absurd that an organization called the Media Research Center made a brilliant video exposing just how absurd it is.
You're starting to hear the Republicans, especially Trump calling it the Wuhan or the Chinese coronavirus. They're looking for someone to blame.
The Wuhan coronavirus. Wuhan coronavirus.
At least 6 people have died from the Wuhan coronavirus. The Wuhan coronavirus. The Wuhan
Okay, I'm going to speed this up here
coronavirus,
too
the
because this
Wuhan
is just the same
coronavirus.
video.
The Wuhan coronavirus. The outbreak of the
Coronavirus, it just
Wuhan
keeps going over and over.
coronavirus. Wuhan coronavirus.
The Wuhan coronavirus. The Wuhan.
Xenophobia, to use that kind of term.
Hilarious. The second approach to the conservatives are racist claim has been the idea that because we're not going to Chinese restaurants as much these days, we must be racist. This is a claim that was made first by AOC and reiterated by Ayan.
This is the only point he's made so far that makes any kind of sense. And this is where the left kind of steers off the path here. Calling it the Chinese flu or the Chinese virus or whatever isn't that big a deal. It's really not. We need to stay focused on what the big deal is, or the Wuhan virus or something like that. I mean, the Spanish flu is still called the Spanish flu to today, and the first case wasn't even originally in Spain. It was originally in America. It was in Kansas. It just so happened that during World War I, Spain was one of the few neutral countries in Europe, and it was the only country that was really able to report the gory side of the Spanish flu without any kind of interruption from its government, because the other countries didn't want to reduce morale of the soldiers on the front lines by going over a disease that is killing millions of people worldwide. So it ended up being called the Spanish flu. And we still call it that today, really. It's not that big a deal. It's really not. And, this is the only point he's made so far that makes any slight sense.
Anna Presley.
There's a lot of restaurants that are feeling the pain of racism, where people are literally not patroning Chinese restaurants. They're not patroning Asian restaurants because of just straight up racism around the coronavirus.
Since the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak, we have seen not only the spreading of the virus, but also a rapid spreading of racism and xenophobia. The highest levels, in fact, of the Republican Party fanning irresponsibly these flames. One colleague tweeted that everything you need to know about the Chinese coronavirus, unquote. This painful rhetoric has consequences. Restaurants across Boston's Chinatown have seen up to an 80% drop in business.
I mean, this just doesn't make any sense at all. Even leftists are like, wait, what? Let me tell you, if some Chinese guy got off the plane from Wuhan this morning and went to shake AOC or Ayanna's hand, those girls would be running and hiding under their congressional office desks. The virus originated in China. Of course, people don't want to be around Chinese people. Is it rational? No.
Okay, now that is racist. Just because the virus originated in China doesn't make it rational, and it does make it racist if you're here in America and you see an Asian person and you don't want to be around them. That is the definition of you're prejudging them based on their looks and their race, and then you are changing your behavior because of it. It's not rational, and it is racist. You're prejudging them on their race, and they're probably not even Chinese. They're probably just Asian from like Vietnam or the Philippines or Korea or something like that. But dumbass Americans can't tell the difference. They just think Asia is Asia, and you're from China if you look Asian. Holy, that part is racist. I mean, let's continue though.
No, I don't think it is. But is it racist? No, of course it's not, you lunatics. It's what we call self-preservation.
Yeah, self-preservation.
If some new form of
Yeah, that's what it's
leprosy
called.
originated from blonde people, we'd all be avoiding blonde people. That doesn't make anybody racist, you muppets. But let me just reiterate the...
Wait. If you're going to draw an analogy, please make the analogy make sense. If you say blonde people don't come from any specific country. They come from a number of countries. Chinese people specifically can trace their ethnic origin to China. That analogy is just asinine on every level.
The primary point I'm trying to get across in this video. The real pandemic is the media alarmism. This was a great opportunity for CNN to convince people that Trump is a bad president, create public panic, crash the economy, and then blame Trump for it. To CNN's credit, they recognized a real opportunity to exploit public fear. It's an incredibly irresponsible and dangerous thing to do.
CNN, the global cabal behind this whole thing. Wow. This is why this country is in the situation it's in terms of just intelligence. The stuff you see on social media and you hear on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, it hurts my brain. This is so dumb. This is so dumb. See, how would one entity, CNN, and they would have to keep this secret from how many people? And they'd have to get so many other organizations involved in order to carry out what they're trying to carry out, which is crash the economy, blame President Trump, and get him out of office. Holy God, this is stupid.
To stoke fear this way, but they have chosen to do it, and it is working. It's impressive in the same way that it was impressive the way Hitler convinced an entire country that blonde people were superior when he had brown hair. Credit for that joke goes to Joe Mackey. The guy is a genius. If you've never heard his comedy, look him up on YouTube. Joe Mackey, genius.
I won't.
One of the ways that the mainstream media is criticizing Trump is by saying we aren't testing enough. There aren't enough test kits, etc., and that this is all Trump's fault because, you know, Trump actually puts those tests together himself by hand. I don't know if you know that. That's part of the job of the president, make coronavirus test kits by hand. His job. Okay, so here's the problem. The media has panicked everybody into...
Someone should tell this guy that before he makes a video, he should do a little bit of reading. Part of the reason we don't have tests is Trump's fault. Because, again, he sat on his hands for nearly 2 months while this thing was sweeping the globe from China to Iran to Italy and all over Europe. And he kept downplaying it, and we did nothing to prepare. And then when the WHO came with their testing kits, and they were like, hey, use our testing kits so you can get your people tested, they turned it down, him and the CDC. So, yes. And now that we are, almost 2 months into the thing, we still don't have enough testing kits. I personally know people in my life who were sick and couldn't get tested. And their doctor literally had to write a note to their employer telling them, despite what you hear on the media, there are no testing kits available. Oh, man. Let's continue.
Getting tested even if they have no symptoms. I even have a friend who tweeted this the other day, and this is a famous social media person. You probably have heard of them. They wanted to get tested with no symptoms. The media is making people crazy. Look, if people are getting tested with no symptoms, of course there aren't going to be enough test kits. Statistically speaking, almost nobody under 55 is going to die of coronavirus. But look, if you're old, especially if you are immune compromised, and the virus has reached your area, you might want to self-quarantine. Get a family member to shop for you or order from Instacart. Maybe get an emergency rations kit from preparewithmr.reagan.com. Now, look, I hate that old people die. Generally,
a shameless
I hate it.
plug
My
about
grandparents
some
all
doomsday
died
prepping.
several years ago, and it was tragic for my family. These were all very good people, and the thought of anybody's grandparents dying right now because of coronavirus, I mean, I sympathize with everybody out there who's going to have to deal with this or who is dealing with this currently. But this will happen whether it's corona or the common flu or some other ailment. Old people die. It's a crappy part of living this life. But it's also what makes life so precious, the ephemeral nature of it. The fact that we do live about 80 to 100 years drives us to make the most of those years. We push ourselves to make a difference in the world. And time is the real currency that we trade in. It's those who toil through this life, raising good kids and contributing to the development of their families and their communities and their country and to the world. It's these people who find themselves at the end of their lives fulfilled. Now, I'm not saying that we should not do everything that we can to preserve the lives of the grandparents out there who are currently at risk from the coronavirus. I just mean to put the deaths of those that we do lose into some perspective. Old people will, unfortunately, die. You will die. I will die. If we spend our lives worried about this, we won't be able to fully enjoy the time we do have.
Yes, old people will die. Young people will die. But why do we give a fuck? This guy's basically saying if old people are dying from a disease that they otherwise wouldn't have caught and died from, so they're dying prematurely. They're dying from something that could have been prevented. They're being taken from this world and their family. But there's nothing to worry about. Jesus. This is all it takes to get 220,000 subscribers. Man.
So tell your parents that you love them. Live your life with integrity. Do your job to the best of your ability and maybe travel a bit. Maybe wait a month for that last suggestion, though. Now, maybe I'm totally wrong about the severity of the coronavirus.
You are.
You may 100% disagree with me, and I respect that. I've been wrong about stuff before. And a lot of my friends think that I'm wrong about this. But
you are.
I can only tell you my perspective, and I honestly think
your
the
perspective
panic
is terrible.
is worse than the virus in this case. The panic has become the pandemic. It's not the virus that has crashed the economy. It's the fear of the virus that has done this. Stop fearing death, people. Don't go...
It's not the death. Someone needs to talk to this guy. It's not the death. It's not the fatality rate as of yet, because we don't really know what that is. It's the hospitals being bombarded by sick people, running out of supplies, running out of beds, running out of nurses to take care of them. Then other people for other ailments can't get the proper treatment and they may die indirectly. Or again, we may run out of ventilators. So Joe may get a ventilator and Mary may not have one to get, and then she dies. But who gives a shit, right? Because they're 77.
Be irresponsible, of course, but don't panic either. Go out and live life. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much that isn't so. Good night.
The destiny of man.
I'll continue to scour YouTube and Twitter for more asinine takes that I can bring to you and pick apart, and hopefully help people wade through the disinformation from ill-informed doofuses.